The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Good morning and welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. I'm Shannon Penrod and look who's here. It's Dr. I'm going to move my box of Kleenex. It's blocking you a little bit.
Good morning. Good morning.
It's Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and we're loving your palm tree in your background. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
And you are
Yes.
actually by palm trees. So this is wonderful to have you.
Thank you. It's lovely to be there.
Well,
Virtually.
and we've got a great show planned for you guys. As you know, if you watch the show, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a true expert in the field of autism. She's been working in this field for over 45 years. I know we all want her skin genes, but she has been working in this field with all kinds of individuals, young babies, kids, teenagers, adults, senior citizens, helping them to get to the progress for things that are meaningful to them. And we're so excited to have her here. She donates this hour to answer questions for all of you from around the world. And I want to say, sometimes I forget to give the disclaimer, but in this format, it is a little bit dicey, right? Because there's no possibility that any expert can give individually specific advice in this format. And a true expert needs to have, and Dr. Granpeesheh is the true expert, needs to have eyes on the situation to be able to give individually specific advice. But so we always give the disclaimer that please write in whatever your question is, as specific as possible, so that you can listen to some of the thoughts from Dr. Granpeesheh, but also sometimes she asks questions back so that we can have it create a dialogue, and then you want to take whatever you learn from her and go to the expert who has eyes on the situation. Does that sound about right, Dr. Granpeesheh?
That sounds perfect. Thank you, Shannon, for that.
Thank you. And we also want everybody to know that we're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as a few other sites. But you can be writing in right now on those platforms. We'd love to take your questions live. I'm already saying good morning to Andrea. I don't know whether is it Andrea. There are so many choices, but you need to tell me at some point. But we're saying good morning to you and thrilled that you're here. If you want to be a part of the live dialogue, please write in on one of those platforms, or you can write in your questions directly to me, Shannon at autism-live.com, or even better, go to askdrdoreen.com and put your question in the, it says contact us, put your question in there. Then it goes to Marina, and Marina will follow up with you like nobody's business, because Marina is better than sliced bread. And let me not forget that we're here with our wonderful, fabulous producer, Chris Desmond. How many times in the last 24 hours have we said, thank God for Chris Desmond?
Oh my gosh, yes. Many, many times, all the time. We love you, Chris.
We absolutely do. And we love all of you. We're thrilled to be here with you guys live. And we, of course, we love Dr. Granpeesheh. Thank you for donating your time, Dr. Granpeesheh. All right. I didn't say that we podcast. The show is live right now, but it podcasts, and later on in the day, it'll be available as a free download wherever you get your podcasts. Please don't forget that you need to subscribe now to the Ask Dr. Doreen podcast. It may have been, because for the longest time, if you were subscribed to Autism Live, you got both, but now it is separate. So you must subscribe to Ask Dr. Doreen or you will stop getting your feed. There is one exception to that, which I'll tell you in a minute. Don't forget that when we podcast, of course, there is a cost for that, but we don't transfer that cost to you. Our sponsors are helping to defray that cost so that there is no charge for you. So please embrace our sponsors. If, however, some of you have written in and said, hey, I love that you have sponsors, but I'd really like to get the feed and without the sponsors, and I'm happy to pay for it. There is a small charge for that if you would like to do that, $5 a month. Go to glow.fm/autismlive. When you subscribe there for just $5 a month, or if you pay for the year, it comes to you even less. They take out the charge for how often they run your card. If you do that, you're getting a twofer because you get Autism Live and Ask Dr. Doreen all free of ads. It really just doesn't get better than that. So please subscribe or like us, share us, do what you will. But Ask Dr. Doreen is now a separate podcast. So Dr. Granpeesheh, our topic for today is sensory needs, a huge topic, especially this time of year. I think when the sensory stuff around the holidays goes up, it creates a very interesting dynamic. So we've got some questions that people have written in, and we've got some questions that people are writing in, and we hope to get to as many as possible. First question is kind of long. I have 3 children on the spectrum, and I wish the world could see just one of our days to understand how different my kids are from each other. My 11-year-old is high functioning. He is in regular school, great grades, but he has high sensory needs. He has to have a fidget in his hands at all times or he falls apart and can't concentrate. We had to have it written into his IEP. My 7-year-old is sound sensitive. It's like normal sound is turned up to 11 for her. She wears headphones everywhere, and I worry, what is she missing out on? My youngest is 4. He needs to rock constantly or be in movement. I worry about life for all of them. What happens when my 11-year-old needs to take the SATs to go to college? Are they going to let him have a fidget during the test? Is my daughter going to be sentenced to not hearing? And for my littlest, how on earth is he going to be able to go to kindergarten next year when he is incapable of being still for 3 seconds? I feel like I have worked hard to make our lives function, but it's all a very precarious house of cards, and I wonder what happens if I die. Which I just want to hug this parent because I think that's a lot of what parents think. Like, okay, we've got this on some sort of an even keel, but first of all, what happens if something upsets that, and what happens if I die?
Yeah. I mean, it's, as any parent will attest, it's difficult, right? And we worry about everything with our children, but especially if you're dealing with 3 special needs children and they each have different needs, which is, so common in autism. I guess, first of all, yes, giving you, as Shannon would say, an air hug, because good Lord, what you're dealing with is unique and amazing. And I can only imagine all the different things you worry about. But I would say, you've done a tremendous job of managing things up to this point. Not everybody deals with 3 different children with special needs. And if you really are just concerned about kind of what will happen when you're no longer around, then like all parents, I think you have to find trustees, you have to find people who are willing to be guardians, you have to set up your will and make sure that things are as taken care of as possible, right? I mean, we never even parents of typically developing kids, everybody always worries, and it's always hard to find the right person who's willing to say, okay, in case you're not here, I'm going to step in. And sometimes it's going to be 2 or 3 people, cousins, siblings, friends, etc., and or spouse, of course, or anyone who you feel would be the right person. As they say, it takes a village. And so if you can do that, because I think that does help a little bit. I remember when my kids were young and I kind of set up a will and trust, and it was so difficult just coming to the decision of what would happen if I'm not there. Is so sad and so difficult to choose the right people and then ask them and they agree and all of these things, right? And people change and relationships change, and so you have to keep that updated, actually, because your relationship with those folks might change, and as your children grow up, things change. So, but I do think it's important to do that because it does give you a little bit of a sense of relief. And then, of course, going forward, you have to continue to build the village of people who are helping for your children right now. I do want to say, just in response to, well, your 11-year-old, yes, they will make accommodations in testing. I guess what I want to tell you from someone who's been in the field for over 40 years, things have changed a lot and they will continue to change. So hopefully by the time your kids are adults, there will be a much more acceptance and many more accommodations available to our kids. So not only will your 11-year-old, which I'm so glad to hear that your 11-year-old is so high functioning, that your biggest worry is, can they take their sensory fidget toy when they test for college? So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Regarding your 7-year-old daughter, by the way, there are now headphones where you can actually turn on and off the external noises. So in other words, she can actually, there are buttons on the headphones where you can hear conversation even if you keep your headphone on. It allows you to hear some of the external noises, but it blocks the overall sounds that are coming in. So all the new Apple stuff is like that, and there are lots of other headphones that allow you to have either complete silence or you can hear some of it, but it's muffled. So you don't need to worry about what she's missing out, because I do believe that headphones for a lot of our kids are very helpful. Of course, you can also go ahead and teach her that when she is in conversation, let's say, it would be good to remove the headphones, So these are all shaping things. And by the way, in regards to sensory issues, they do change over time. Sometimes our kids actually become much more acclimated and comfortable with sensory input. And so as the child ages, those sensory input areas become less hurtful or drastic, and our kids are able to tolerate them more. And then finally, regarding your 4-year-old, I've always found it very interesting that body rocking is a very calming thing, because it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So, maybe you can also have a rocking chair for the 4-year-old in his room, and allow him to go there and do that, so that the rest of the time he doesn't need to body rock as much. This is kind of like sensory integration in a sense. When we put our kids on a sensory diet, in between lessons, we give them sensory activities to calm them down, so that during the lesson they can be calmer and can pay attention. So there's a lot to do currently, but I do really recommend that you kind of start building that village around you if you haven't already, because this is a lot to deal with for one person.
Yeah, I have to say that that was the aha moment for us when Jem was little, was realizing that we weren't going to pick one person or one family.
Yeah.
That we, much the way people have godparents, which are supposed to be the people that oversee someone's spiritual life, we decided to have godparents for all different kinds of things in life. That I even have 2 godparents that were just responsible, if anything happened to Jim and I, that they were responsible for taking Jem to theater and cultural things. Because we wanted to make sure that he had a full, we have a person that, a couple that he can go to if he has legal questions. We just sort of doled out. We picked, one family, my niece and her husband, that if he was under the age of 18 and we died, that he would go and live with them. But we had all of the financial stuff taken care of by somebody else, and we had that he would live with them, but his actual guardian would be somebody who didn't live there, so that there was always checks and balances. And that, and it was amazing when we were only asking people, can you just take care of this aspect of his life? They were like, of course, because I'm not responsible for everything. So that there was this team of people that to surround him, and that allowed me to sleep. Because it's the unthinkable. But absolutely sending that mom a hug. saying hello to Riding with Mike. So thrilled that you're here with us, Mike. And I want to say that Andrea wrote into us. I love this. She wrote last week, Dr. Granpeesheh, about her son not wanting to get out of the car to go into the house. And you suggested to give him some sort of highly motivated reward. So she is giving him 2 mini marshmallows when he gets in the house, and it totally worked. I love this example because sometimes we think, oh my gosh, something highly rewarding, I'm going to have to get him, you know, this giant toy that I'm going to have shipped. 2 mini marshmallows is all it took, and now he's happy to go in the house. But she wants to know, when and how do I fade this reward?
Yes, perfect. And actually, it's important to fade it. When you learn about reinforcement, there's multiple different types of schedules of reinforcement, which is very, very important because in real life, we never continually get reinforced. In fact, I'm going to try not to get into a huge lecture on reinforcement and types of reinforcement, but if you maintain a continual schedule like he has right now, which means every single time he will get the marshmallows, then it becomes, not only is it difficult to manage, but if you miss, let's say, 2 opportunities, he might just stop. Like, it's very easy for a behavior to go away if it's only maintained on a continuous schedule. So I do recommend that you fade it, but you fade it very, very slowly, and you fade it to what's called it'll be kind of a random schedule on which he will. So the way you'll do it is, like, the next time you tell him to come in, and he doesn't get, or give him 1 marshmallow this time, right? And then once you've done that, go ahead for the next, I don't know, week, give him the 2 again. And then after a week, have him come in and don't give him any for one time that he comes in. And then again, for let's say 5 days, go back to giving him 2. So you're doing it very, very slowly, and you're doing it on a random schedule. You don't want to do it every single week. Like, at the end of the week, he has a time that he comes in and he doesn't get it, because it has to be random. The schedule has to be random. It can't be based on a set number. And it also needs to be faded very slowly. And also, you can replace with other fun activities. Like, for instance, you could give him 1 marshmallow, but then say, hey, we're going to do something fun together now. Whatever it is, but do it slowly, fade it gradually, and he won't really, it'll be fine. So as long as you now move it to more natural things, for instance, you know, you were going to do fun activities in the house.
Right.
So, and that's kind of how you do it.
And pair it all with praise, I'm guessing?
Always praise, but I think the main thing is that these are called ratio schedules. Intermittent ratio is what it's actually called, because it's based on a kind of a random number of times. And each time he's not going to get the marshmallow each time. So he will never know when he's going to get it. So he will continue to come in hoping that this is the time I get it. And eventually you can even take it down to, you know, oh, hey, we're out of marshmallows, but we'll get something else.
Right.
And then you can just mix it. Yeah.
Can I tell you what I call that reinforcement schedule? I call it the slot machine.
It is the slot machine. Slot machines are specifically built on intermittent ratio schedules. And that's the schedule that is the hardest to break. And that's why we all sit in front of a slot machine doing this, because we think that, oh, the next one is going to be the time when I win, the next one. And they're on a random schedule.
Yeah, there we go. Saying hello also to Autism Journey with Elijah. We had them on the show yesterday, Mike and Lori Bowersox. They were absolutely amazing. If you guys missed that show, you should go back and watch that. They have a new line of shirts out that are called, it's the Autism Affirmation Clothing. They're so
Ooh,
lovely with, great affirmative things on their shirt. It's really lovely. Everybody needs to check that out.
that's awesome.
Okay, going on to our next question. My son screams whenever we get on the highway. Is that a sensory thing, and how can I change it? Currently, I try to never get on the highway with him in the car. For Thanksgiving, we went to my sister's. We drove at night on side streets until he went to sleep, and then we got on the freeway. At one point, he woke up and started screaming, and we almost wrecked the car. Sending them a hug.
Yeah.
Hard stuff.
Yeah, people don't realize how difficult these things are, it's so difficult, right?
Yeah.
Just so difficult because we're constantly trying to make modifications and accommodations to help our kids be able to tolerate what's in their day-to-day environment.
Yeah.
It could be sensory. It's hard for me to tell because I'm not there and I don't know what else is happening, but it could be, and when we say sensory, it could be visual, it could be auditory, or it could just be fear. And so you need to kind of, I guess what I would do is I try to figure out which one it is. And the way to do that is, first of all, don't avoid the freeway, because whether it's, it's not always going to be you, and sooner or later he'll be exposed to being in a car on the freeway. And when he is, he needs to be able to handle it, right? So instead of avoidance, try to give him the tools to handle it. Now, if it is a visual thing, then giving him an iPad that will distract him, and then you go on the freeway for a very short period of time. And if it's successful, you can gradually increase the duration. If it's a auditory thing, then obviously you're going to want to give him noise canceling headphones. And again, if it is successful, and I don't know his age or his level of comprehension, but you could just go in one entrance and exit the next exit, so that you start with a very short thing, and then you can tell him we're going to do 2 exits, and then he can count, like distract him, so he knows also that we're just going for 2 exits, we're going for 3 exits. Now let's see how long we can go. But you do want to give him the tool, right? So either like an iPad, or you could even give him something to draw. Maybe it is the sound that's bothering him, so the headphones. Maybe give him his favorite music, something like that. And by the way, if it is just fear, like if he is afraid of something, maybe the speed with which you are traveling on a freeway, then again, getting over any kind of phobia has to do with graduated, sort of very slow exposure to the scenario, paired with a calming stimulus, right? So assuming that music, or watching something on his video, or maybe someone sitting next to him, maybe holding a favorite stuffed animal, anything that is calming for him would be paired with very small exposure to the freeway. And when you do, if it ends up being just a phobia, sometimes we can just do graduated exposure through visual things, like for instance, a picture of a car on a freeway is the first exposure, and then a video, watching a car drive on TV on the freeway, something like that, before you experience it with him in the car. But I do recommend just giving him a lot of different, one by one, so that you can tell which one it is, but giving him the tools, the support, making him feel safe, making him know that there are options where he can pick up his headphones. If it's the sound, he can look at his iPad or whatever else he is engaging him, if it is the visual, and work on it, and you will gradually get past it. As parents, we have so much going on, Shannon, as you know, that we end up just avoiding the situation.
Yeah.
But the sooner you work on it, the better.
I'll be honest with you. If I had another life to live, I honestly think this is what I would want to do with my life, is just figure these things out because they're so fascinating to me. And
Yeah.
I have so many questions for this mom because as you bring up, is it a visual thing? Is it a sound thing? Because, it's a very distinct thing that he's screaming on the freeway, but if they're on a side road, he's not screaming. And
Yeah.
so part of me wants to know, is that because when you're going fast, I'm certainly somebody who I get car sick on a stationary bicycle. I am just
Mhm.
like no fun on a merry-go-round. You know what I mean? And if I didn't have a way of saying that when I was a kid, and there were times when I was a kid when I would say, pull over, pull over, pull over. And I would
Mhm.
get out and my mother would describe it that I would clutch the grass and I would be shaking because I would be so dizzy. So,
Mhm.
and I will tell you that as an adult, I have to drink ginger tea before I get on the tram at Disneyland
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
I will get car sick. But ginger tea fixes it for me. But so I
Yeah.
wonder but it could, as you said, it could easily be there's a whomp, 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 whomp noise when you get fast, and that sometimes our kids can hear that we can't hear. There's so many different things, but clearly if he's screaming, there's something. Or is he remembering a past trauma? There's something. But I love the idea of trying to figure it out instead of route your life around it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
And
she
by the
deserves
way, I
that and
mean,
he
thank you for
deserves that.
bringing that up, Shannon, and saying that he could be feeling nauseous or dizzy. Definitely, that's one option. But remember, just as likely as it is that it could be a fear or a trauma, it could also be a game. Like
Yes.
sometimes, you know what I mean? Like he might be hearing the womp 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 sound and actually screaming along with it because it sounds like a song to him or something
Yes.
like that. So we have to be open to all the possibilities. And the first thing I would do is just sit in his location and list all the things that it could be causing that, and
Yeah.
then go one at a time and try to figure it out.
Well, you just made me think about when people are on roller coaster rides and they're going fast, what do? They
They scream.
scream because it's enjoyable.
Yeah,
And maybe
yeah,
that's, him. So we
yeah,
don't know. But I just want to know. I want to go
yeah.
spend 2 weeks and I want to find out. But that's not my life. Okay. We're moving on.
And also another thing is, let's not forget, sometimes our kids just see something and they imitate it.
Yes.
So I don't know what he's seen on TV. Like maybe he has seen, I don't know, a car chase or something where he thinks, it's accompanied by screaming. I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
But definitely trying to figure it out. I do think that some of the biggest moments when I look at all the families that I know, that moment when they figured it out is worth everything. And avoiding it, as you said, is not the ticket.
Well,
Uh,
because it ends up being more and more and more and more. And by the
yeah.
time the child is like 15, you're avoiding 20 different
Oh,
things, and then it makes life just impossible for you as a parent. This is
yeah.
what I also tell parents who are avoiding dealing with, let's say, the child sleeping with them at night.
Yep.
And it's one thing if your child is 4 and you're still not dealing with it. It's a different thing if they're 18.
Yep.
So sooner or later, it's something you have to deal with.
Absolutely. NH has written in and said, my son is just 6 years old, speaks in full sentences, and is making great improvement in social interactions and academics. When,
Great.
all in capital letters, when he's focused. His biggest
Okay.
challenge is when he just imagines, as he calls it, usually about games, shows, or special interests. These imaginations are so strong that it's nearly impossible to get his attention. When he is in this mode, and it feels like an entirely separate mode. If you do get his attention at all, he uses little language, misses what you say, and is incapable of social interaction. The problem is when he does it in school, time to read before bed, or when it's time to eat, etc. The only thing that gets him out of this imagination mode is something exciting, stimulating, or from his special interests.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that last part is so important, that the parent wrote that, because it tells you that it is in his control. It tells you that if he wants to, if it's of interest or he really wants to, he can